And we're live, I'm pretty sure.
Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here.
Hey, let me know if the audio levels are good or if they're trash.
Oh yeah,
sometimes they're trash apparently.
that old classic.
Yeah. But yeah, hey guys, sorry we're a couple minutes late. We were working on stuff, but we're here now, so yeah.
Secret projects. I know the poll is not up yet. I am working on that right now, real quick. Yeah, I guess first let's just apologize to everyone for last week. I was in another state, like a few hours from home, and I had some car troubles. So I could not get home in time for the show. Meanwhile, Shadow had a fever?
A migraine. I didn't have a fever, thankfully. I was very relieved I didn't have a fever, but I had a very, very bad migraine to where I was basically just stuck laying on the couch. I would have been this show would have been miserable if I had to do it. So, yeah.
So it just seemed like the stars aligned. I didn't end up tweeting about it because I was driving and dealing with car stuff. But Shadow tweeted and Shadow put it in the Discord. I saw there were some people still confused last week. I don't know what to tell you. Ordinarily, I would have retweeted it or whatever, but like I said, I was busy. If you want to stay up to date with like all the happenings going on with the award show audit, you should join the Discord server and follow Shadow on Twitter too.
Yeah, do it. I don't tweet very often, but when I do, it's absolute 100% fact and in no way my personal opinion.
Oh no.
So that's how it be.
Okay.
Let's see. So yeah,
you want to answer that super chat real quick while I do the poll?
Tim Whitfield with a $5 super chat. Pie Guy and Shadow, nice. Have either of you seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit and any of the 3 Roger Rabbit shorts? I haven't seen any of the shorts.
I've never seen the shorts either.
I didn't even know there were shorts, honestly. So that's news to me. But yeah, of course I've seen Roger Rabbit. It was on Cartoon Network way back when. That's when I saw it. I think during the cartoon theater. Or
I actually reference it in the last recast. Recently. So yeah, it's a great movie. Love Christopher Lloyd. Love 2D animation, and the novelty of that movie is crazy. If you haven't seen it, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, right.
It's a really, really cool, really, really unique movie. If you want to see Donald Duck and Daffy Duck interact, and not in some stupid YouTube parody, there's the only place you can. So.
Yep. There you go. But yeah. We've
got a special show this week.
Yep.
Yep. I'll let you say what you want to say.
Okay. I was just going to say tonight's show is actually very special because we're jumping back to present day, and we're going to be talking about the nominees for the recently announced Primetime Emmy Awards for 2021. Still the animation category as always, but yeah, we're going to be talking about the 2021 nominees. So I hope you guys are looking forward to that. Hopefully you checked out some of them. I don't blame you if you didn't watch all of them, but you know, it is what it is. I'm excited to get into this a little bit.
To set the scene, the year is 2021. The pandemic is still going on, despite some people thinking it's over. Everything's kind of sad. It's 2021, baby. Adult animation is the only thing allowed in this category. They banned kids stuff off to the short form and the daytime Emmys. So, yeah, you're going to see a lot of familiar faces that have just completely taken over the Emmys for this category.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, shows that you thought we were done talking about. Nope, they're back. And better than ever. I don't know about that second part. But, yeah.
Yeah.
We're back to talking about some of these. So, Shadow, I guess I can go ahead
announce them.
Yeah. Alrighty, so there's 5 nominees for 2021. First up, we have Bob's Burgers with Worms of In-rear-ment. Yes, that's the pun. Second up, we've got Big Mouth, The New Me. Mm-hmm. Third is Primal with Plague of Madness.
Okay.
Fourth is the South Park Pandemic Special. And last but not least, The Simpsons with The Dad Feelings Limited.
Okay. So the poll is up now.
Okay.
So everyone go and vote.
Yep, so
Down
go
in the
vote on which
description.
one you think is most worthy of winning that award. We will be going through all 5 nominees as always and sharing our thoughts on which one we feel deserves to win at the end and seeing what you guys vote on. So yeah, go ahead and do that.
Right. I guess first we actually have a little bit of business, though, before we talk about them. So we did briefly talk about these episodes, just not having seen them, just kind of our general opinions or whatever, when they were announced to be the nominees for this year. And we kind of picked which one we wanted to win, and we picked which ones we thought the Emmys were going to pick. I believe for the Emmys, I think I said Big Mouth. I think that was my guess. Just kind of a myopic guess out of, sadness and no trust in the Emmys. Do you remember what you picked, Shadow?
I don't remember. I feel like I said something along the lines of, I want it to be Primal, and I'm going with Primal, but I think it's going to be South Park. I think that's what I said. I don't remember. Someone in the chat might remember. If you could remind me, because I don't remember what I said, that'd be great. But
right.
I think I said that.
Okay. Well, we'll announce now that we've seen these episodes. We'll talk about. I think I said I wanted Primal to win. I wanted it. But yeah, now that we've seen them, we'll talk about them. We'll say which ones we actually liked the best. Maybe things have changed, and and then of course at the end we'll announce what won the Emmy.
Yep, for sure. So with that, you want to just go ahead and get right into Bob's Burgers?
No.
Neither do I, but we gotta. So let's go ahead and get it over with. Bob's Burgers is back, baby. It's not an episode all about Tina, but she's still here.
Shadow, did you know that there's a Bob's Burgers show called The Great North, and the characters still stare directly into your soul?
I hate it. I haven't even seen it, and I didn't even know it existed until earlier when you told me. I don't care. I hate it. I'm never gonna watch it.
That's a reasonable standpoint, I think. Yeah, same. I saw it. I had to watch the premiere of The Simpsons for something I did with the real gyms. But yeah, I found out that exists too. And just from the cinematography, I'm like, well, this is just still Bob's Burgers, but in ice, I guess. Not for me. Yeah.
Yep. So this is an episode.
Yes, so Worms of In-rear-ment is an episode in which Linda wants to take everyone out to the opera because she wants the kids to hear music and become educated because they didn't listen to music in the womb, and Linda believes in that stupid non-science thing about playing Beethoven for your babies or whatever, because Linda is a bad mother. And yeah, so she wants them to go to that, but they all have butt worms, and so they can't go to it.
And they still try to anyways.
Yeah, they chase the kids around the house. This episode may or may not have parallels to COVID, even though I believe it was written before COVID. But the Belchers are the type of family who would take an infectious thing and something that could spread to other innocent people and still go out to a social gathering.
Yeah, they are. I hate this episode.
Yeah, so when I said Linda was a bad mother, I didn't just mean it in my snarky way. That is the plot. The plot is chasing the kids around while the kids itch their butts. But the end of the episode tries to make it about Linda thinking she's a bad mom and Bob having to try to desperately argue why these kids who walk all over them and scratch their butts and just build a hamster tube thing even though they don't have a hamster, why these kids are not like the worst kids ever.
It's such a stretch. Like, the episode is grasping, and I mean grasping at straws with its justification for that whole, moral conclusion that it comes to about the family, the whole dynamic and everything. It's like, this thing is a mess from beginning to end. I'm like...
A guy named Crystal's pointing it out, but, yes, of course, we Shadow and I generally don't like Bob's Burgers, although there are episodes we have liked. I can't imagine why they picked this episode to send in, because as much as I don't really like Bob's Burgers, I have to believe there are better episodes in this season than this one.
I do
Like,
too, but I think it's because there's a musical number. Because if there's a trend we've
there's
noticed,
always a musical number though.
well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is
Yeah.
the trend we've noticed with a lot of nominees is a lot of them for some reason tend to have musical numbers.
Yeah,
So-
but Bob's. Oh, I mean, I guess this one's kind of a big one.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I meant.
So, yeah, so the bulk of it really is just like Linda and Bob chasing the kids around the house, and it's about buttworms because again, everything in this show for whatever reason has to go back to like toilet, like literal toilet humor. If it's about your butt, it's Bob's Burgers.
Yep.
I
Which speaks to the quality of the show.
No, and yeah, and here's the thing too. This episode made me a little uncomfortable just because like I don't mind watching really over the top violence on South Park because it doesn't happen to me or whatever. This is the sort of thing that could happen. Like gross worms infesting your body. Like it just makes my skin crawl. I don't like it, and the fact that this episode is entirely about that. And these characters scratching their butts with spatulas and various things. It's so weird how this show can feel grosser than Family Guy sometimes, and I don't know how. Like I was more uncomfortable watching this than any of the Family Guy episodes we watched.
Yep, same. Yeah, I was not a fan of this at all. I think this is one of, if not the worst Bob's Burgers episodes we've had to sit through. This is abysmal, especially coming off of technically our first show, but the previous year with the whole haunted pig episode,
Right.
which was like pretty good. That was a pretty decent episode, you know? And then it's like it goes back to this. It's like, ugh. Because as we were noticing with Bob's Burgers, is it like it kind of was like good and then it dipped and then it went back up again. But now it's just dropped completely. I think the whole premise is just it's incredibly confined, and you know,
Well, it's a bottle episode. I mean, there's like a flashback and a fantasy sequence, but other than that, it's entirely takes place in the Belcher's home. And whereas a lot of really good shows like Community or Mythic Quest could take, you know, the core characters in the core one of the core locations and no other locations, right, and make a beautiful, amazing episode that deeply goes into like who these characters are and what are their dynamics with each other, and really like explores the characters, simplifies everything else to explore the characters. This it just is an excuse for these characters to run all around, and then the whole thing with Linda feeling like she's a bad mom, it feels like it comes out of nowhere because, honestly, her line in the beginning about wanting the kids to get some culture feels almost like a joke. Like oh, haha, like she didn't play Beethoven in the womb, so it's funny that she wants to take the kids out now. I don't think that's funny, but like I didn't think it was actually going to be a plot point. And then later when it comes up, like Linda like lays on the ground and is like, I'm a bad mom. And it's just kind of like, you are.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk about it a lot, but like Louise is completely out of control and constantly talks back to her parents. I mean, look, it's a fictional character. I'm not saying that like kids need to be disciplined, but I'm just saying like even within this fictional world, Bob and Linda are just such pushovers to their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Their kids get to say so many nasty things about them. And it's just like, I don't know, man. You really don't want to raise the question if you're a good parent, because you're not really. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And if that was what the conflict was going to be about, I think they needed to layer that in better towards the beginning, because it really just feels like here's some weird gross out stuff, and then we're going to try to make it emotional and meaningful and about the characters, but it doesn't work.
No.
And yeah, I mean, the resolution to that is Bob being like, Linda, they built this hamster tube. That's creative. So our kids aren't, they're not dumb. Like, that's it. That's basically it.
Uh-huh.
You know? And then Louise, like, says something that just completely undermines him. Like, she calls him an idiot or something. And then Bob's like, not now, Louise. And then Louise is like, I'll talk when I want to talk. And then Bob's like, oh, okay, Louise. Maybe not literally, but
basically, you paraphrased it pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's. I'm in complete agreement there. It's just not. It just doesn't do. It doesn't do a lot. It's just like a whole bunch of terribly uncomfortable jokes that aren't funny. And the only compliment I can give this episode is it's not about Tina liking boys. But that's not really a compliment. It's just a relief. But yeah, no, I think this is debatably the worst Bob's Burgers episode we've had to sit through. Period.
We've seen a lot, and I definitely would need to be reminded of some of the ones we've seen before I could say something like that. But I definitely think this is in the bottom tier.
Mm-hmm. I'd rather sit through some of those episodes about Tina liking boys. Like where she tries to sneak into that audition, or the one where she hangs out in a limo with those other girls to sabotage a date. Like those episodes, not amazing, better than this for sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But no, that's all I have to say. This is bad. This is horrible.
Someone mentioned that maybe they nominated it because of like COVID parallels or whatever, but the COVID parallels basically amount to just like the characters wash their hands.
Washing their hands, yeah.
Right, and it's like, yeah, that's good. Put out that message, and even if it's coincidental, but again, it's like it kind of features the Belcher. Like Linda is trying to get her kids who have these worms to go with them to the opera.
Despite knowing they're infected, yeah. Exactly.
Right, and it's just like if they are trying to lean into it, right, even if it wasn't intended, and be like, well, we'll nominate it because it's topical, it sends out a not great message.
Mm-hmm. Right. I feel like that parallel is more coincidental and very, very vague, because if that was intentional, which again, I think this was written before, it's given off the wrong idea, which would, in my opinion, make this even worse than it is. But I think that's coincidental, so I don't hold it against it as much.
What's my favorite streaming service? HBO Max.
Hey, same.
Yeah, Linda was in the wrong, sure, but like, they would still have done it. I mean, like, had their kids not been such disasters, I don't know. They end up staying in, which is good. There's also, we didn't talk about it, there's a music number that involved like the worms playing, like, and when I say the worms, I mean like just the worms, like worms. They are just like two lines with colored in white. They are not animated. They are not that animated. They're not, it's like they kind of use this fantasy sequence where Linda sings about her problems or whatever. And like the song itself is fine, but just the visuals that go with it, it's these worms playing the instruments. And at first it's like, oh, that's kind of absurd, but like they don't do that much with it. Like like, am I crazy, or were the worms really stiff?
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there was hardly any fluid animation there. It was very, very stiff. Stiff is a good word for it.
Also, Tina gets her arm stuck in a shirt, and that just happens, and she's like that for the rest of the episode. Somehow she's not able to get her arm through. I guess because she's too, like, she outgrew it. I don't really get it. I don't get how her arm is stuck in that thing when her other arm clearly fits through. And why she is insistent on wearing that for the rest of the episode, but that's there. I prefer realistic buttworms. No, I'd prefer cartoony buttworms. That's the exact opposite.
I'd prefer a funny episode.
Okay. Well, I don't know that there's really anything else to say about this. Yeah. Again, I'm sorry if you like Bob's Burgers. Not because I apologize for my opinion, just because I think the show could probably have sent in something better, but this is how they choose to represent themselves.
Yeah. I'm ready to move on.
Yeah, please. I'm sick of this picture.
Okay. Now we're on to Big Mouth with the new me.
Oh.
Look, no. I put this stuff at the front, okay? I did it on purpose so we could just get past it. Let's talk about it. We'll get it over with. We can move on to the next thing, and then it gets better.
Okay.
So Big Mouth, we're back.
So this is the first episode of, I think, the fourth season of Big Mouth.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So the plot of this, so all the characters go off to camp. Most of the characters go off to camp. There's various plots that happen with a lot of different characters. The Nick, I think his name is, he has a camp friend that reminds him of his other friend, and then gets jealous when this other friend and the camp friend become close friends. It's that old plot line. There's that. There's the kid voiced by Jason Mantzoukas. He kind of starts a relationship, or at least a friendship, with the girl, Lola Butt Uglio or something, whatever
Something
her
like that.
horrible name is. They start like a relationship based on the fact that everyone hates them. And then also this plot line that you see in the picture, in which a camper arrives to camp, having now come out as trans, and she's dealing with how the boys react to this, how the girls react to this, and she tries to strike up a friendship with the redhead in the picture. I don't know her name. Also, this as if like there's not a million things going on. This hormone monster is like water skiing, and there's something going on with her and like the male puberty monster. There's just way too much going on. The show, thankfully, I will give it credit for this. It does do a recap in song, actually, so it's like entertaining. As entertaining as Big Mouth gets.
Yeah.
But they do recap things that happened in the previous season so that we weren't like completely in the dark. But in that recap, they even joke that this show has too many characters, which is just absolutely true. This is a show that's really hard to follow if you don't know these characters.
Yep.
Because they are constantly skipping around. Like I said, the most of it occurs at the camp, but then the two characters are not at the camp, and it's just like, I don't know. There's also this thing going on with whenever a character has severe anxiety, there's a mosquito that kind of buzzes around them and kind of feeds on their anxiety. So, yeah. So, I guess to start with the thing that concerned me the most upon hearing about this episode, it does prominently feature a trans character, and to the show's credit, I think that they actually handle that pretty well. Basically, the boys all make fun of her, but the show doesn't agree with that. The other characters are like, "That's awful that happened." But the show is trying to kind of, I guess, encapsulate what horrible, immature, awful boys would say in this situation, and it has the trans character. And forgive me, I don't know her name. I don't know any of these dang characters' names aside from Nick, thanks to Nintendo.
I remember there's a character named Seth, voiced by Seth Rogen. That's the only reation I remember, is because the actor is the character's name. Go
right. But yeah, my point being is just that she handles it with 100% grace. And I think that if you look at this show from the perspective of educating kids, I think that it does a great job at kind of showing how to handle a situation like this. Yeah, and I think the way she explains her transition and her feelings and everything is well done for this show. I didn't think that there was anything problematic. I mean, I am not a trans person. I don't have trans experience. So if someone came out and didn't like any aspect of this, I would 100% support and believe that. But from where I'm standing, this, at the very least, was not offensive, and it seems like they at least took some pains some care in order to treat this character with respect and dignity, and that's good.
I agree, 100%. I think that's the best thing about this episode, is that it features a trans character, and it, does it with respect. And, I appreciate the fact that someone mentioned in the chat that they actually got a trans actress to play the character. And I remember I was doing some research on this episode, and I stumbled across that, which is really cool. And I agree. I like the way that, as you mentioned, the episode, like, it shows the ridicule that it would be faced by someone in that position. However, the show doesn't encourage it. It actually shows, like, hey, this is actually wrong and you shouldn't do that. And I like that there is time taken away from all of the absurdly unnecessary, gross nonsense for these one-on-one conversations in the cabin where the two characters in the screen cap, ignoring the monster, actually have a legitimate conversation and start to, like, form a friendship and get along. That's, like, the best part of the episode.
Yeah.
100%.
That storyline I was completely fine with. Like,
absolutely.
I thought there wasn't, and there's even actually a joke in there that I like that didn't involve gross out, but the girls, the mean girls, there's like a group of mean girls who put like a face-lifting mask on the redhead, and they put it on upside down, and she takes it off, and like her entire, like her eyes are like shifted down, and it's just a funny visual gag. Didn't have anything to do with gross out. It's just like, hey, it's a silly cartoon thing. Great, good. Could do with more of that. Hey, thank you for the super chat, Ken.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that specific plotline between those two girls, dealing with the meaner girls at camp, dealing with the mean boys at camp, like, great. That's great stuff. The rest of it, though, is still Big Mouth.
Yep.
If you would like to see, no, I can't even say this. There's
stuff that happens.
How can I explain?
You can't. I don't think you can. I think I know what you're trying to say. I don't think you can.
I think what I can say in such a way that we won't get any demonetization or anything is just that there is nudity in this episode.
Yeah.
And guess what? Almost every character in this episode is a child. So.
And it's more than one character.
Those are two facts. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Those were two separate sentences. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, and that's gross, and I didn't expect to see that, and it's very weird, and it's just, I think it's just supposed to be like, oh, boys being boys, but like, dude, I don't know, man. I think I had a very different childhood from anyone in the show.
I've never experienced anything like that. Never anything like it.
You know, no shame to anyone who you know did that as a kid or I guess whatever, but it's just like, I don't get it. I don't know. Where do you watch Big Mouth? It's a Netflix exclusive.
Mm-hmm. Netflix.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
there
recommend
you go. Someone in the chat
show,
said it for us. Yeah. And that happens twice. Two different characters. Just throwing that out there.
And it's the comment.
Prolonged.
The comment. That's the humor. That's as funny as the comment makes it out to sound. Yeah.
Yep. It's there. Another thing too. Now things get a little murky with Netflix because obviously this was made to be binged. This was made to be, you know, you watch the whole season or you watch like 3 or 4 episodes in a sitting. But just watching this as a singular episode by itself, this felt really like weird as a narrative because it really did feel like, let's set up a bunch of things, but then there's not really like a story in there. As much as there is, like, I guess there's a few. I don't know. It just felt weird because there's a bunch of bouncing around to characters, and there is kind of resolutions to the things that happen, but it didn't really feel like it came together as a singular episode. Like it's not like I wanted more. Like it's not like I was like, oh, I gotta watch the next episode to see where this goes. It was more just like watching this as a singular experience left me felt unfulfilled. As much as I could try to put myself in the space of someone who likes Big Mouth or doesn't mind Big Mouth in the way that I have problems with it, I tried to look at it as just like an episode of television aside from the gross out and the things I disagree with. And I just kind of felt like this didn't come together. There wasn't really anything thematically connecting about everything. I guess you could say that the theme was two characters bond. Two unlikely friendships are formed between a few different pairings of characters. But yeah, and I'm not saying that's an awful criticism because again, it was made on Netflix. It was made for Netflix. Maybe it was meant to be binged, but just from the perspective of someone watching for the award. For the Emmys, it just felt a little weird.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I felt like this episode was It basically just served to introduce the camp setting. Because, the previous 3 seasons, from what I know, obviously all took place at school. This is kind of like the summer break season, I guess. I don't know if it's the whole season. I'm assuming it is. Maybe I'm wrong. But I just saw this as nothing more than, here's the camp, here's a few settings. You got the mess hall, you got the outside by the lake, you got the woods, and you got the cabin. Let's have the characters do some small stuff here in each setting just to kind of set everything up, and we'll see more interesting, detailed plot lines go on as the season goes on. I mean, I don't plan on watching it, but I'm just giving it the benefit of the doubt there. That's probably how it goes.
I thought this was the best of the 3 episodes we saw of Big Mouth.
Oh yeah, I'll agree. This is the least offensive by far.
Yeah, well, and the best as an episode. I mean, this was the closest I could come to really understanding why people like this show. And I do think that there were elements that I thought were like pretty well done. I like that they're kind of expanding on the hormone monster thing to now also include the anxiety mosquito. And several points before the mosquito is really properly introduced, we kind of get this mosquito buzzing around the characters when they're feeling really anxious. And the fact that the show highlights, anxiety and what it really feels like as a teen or as an adult or whatever. The questions, you question yourself, you doubt yourself, all these things. Like, I thought it portrayed that pretty well. I thought there were things that worked in this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely the best of the 3. Yeah.
And I would also say this is the one that deserved to be nominated the most, because I do think it handles trans issues with respect and care. Is it like a great episode outside of that? No, not really. But it does tackle an issue, and especially, it tackles head on some issues that trans teenagers probably deal with, in regards to mockery and just, intolerant idiots.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Are you done? Choking out your mic?
Yeah, sorry. I was getting resituated because my mic was in a bad spot.
I hoped you muted yourself, but someone commented
no,
on it.
I didn't until it was too late, and I read that comment. I was like, oh shoot, I forgot to do that. Otherwise, I would have. I apologize. But yeah, no, I'm good now. I just sitting in an awkward position because of how my mic was set up, so I had to move it around.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. I'm going to move on to the next nominee. If you,
I am too. I guess I just want to say that I didn't aggressively hate this. I didn't like it, but I didn't aggressively hate this. If the show was more like this, then I could see it as I think I see it. I think I can see the picture clearly about why some people like it. I could definitely do without certain jokes, but that aside, I was mildly interested in where some of these character dynamics were going to go. Not entirely, and again, the one with the main boys really did boil down to that dumb, oh, you stole my friend, my 2 friends are getting along too well without me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought this was tolerable. I guess that's the best way I can put it.
All right. Cool. All right.
That's what you have to say to that?
Yeah. Cool. But moving on to our third nominee, I'd actually like to introduce Pi and I have a very special guest on this week's episode of our show. I'd like to introduce for our next nominee, Mr. Gendy Tarkovsky himself. Pi, would you like to do the honors of introducing him?
Mr. Tarkovsky, please don't chime in until you're introduced properly. It is I, Gendy Man. I make the funny cartoon, and sometimes the cartoon with the stabby and the bitey.
Ah, Mr. Tarkovsky, I have a very, very important question for you. Okay, so you may or may not remember this, but when you were working with George Lucas on the 2003 Clone Wars series, there was this very particular moment where Shaak Ti got left behind. In Star Wars Episode 3, Shaak Ti was killed in a deleted scene. My question for you, Mr. Tarkovsky, is, was the show made did the show leave Shock T behind because that scene was cut, or was the scene cut because the show left Shock T behind?
Where is she, Shadow? The thing is...
Oh, George Lucas, how'd you get here? I was asking Mr. Tarkovsky.
Oh, it appears that Gendy has taken his mask off, and it is, in fact, George Lucas.
No, George! What did you do with Gendy? What did you do?
I make the cartoons now.
No, but you didn't get nominated for this.
Right, just shut up, Shadow. Let's talk about Primal. I'm done with this bit. Okay.
So, 10 out of 10. 100 out of 100. Best nominee. I love this so much. Okay, I got that out of my system. Go ahead, Pi.
I thought this was the worst episode of Primal I saw.
The worst one?
The worst one of Primal episodes.
Wow.
I caught up. I didn't watch past this, but I did catch up, and... Okay, look. Here's the thing. Primal is amazing as a show overall. But this particular episode, I just didn't think actually amounted to that much. I could do without the dinosaur vomiting blood into the water. And I feel like as far as like things that the characters have fought or run away from or whatever, I thought that like zombie dinosaur that was kind of on the brink of dying the whole time was like. So I wanted to say that first just to kind of, I guess, shock people. I still think this was a beautifully animated episode. I still think that there was a lot of artistry in the shots, in the way the story is told. I particularly like the fact, it might be this shot actually, but I love that both of them look utterly horrified that this thing could survive being in a pit of lava. Like, they look like their worldview has changed now that they've seen that this is possible.
That's fair. So, as far as my stance on this episode goes, I would agree in saying that it's not the best episode. It's definitely not.
I love Primal. Oh my god, I would have, maybe it wouldn't have been eligible. I don't know the time wise. I would have done the what is it? It's like something of the man ape, the one where it's the ape fighting arena.
That would have been one of my top choices too.
I mean, that's a pretty fantastic episode, and like there were still things I liked about that. Like it I don't know. I know I sound harsh, but I think I just kind of feel like it uses a lot of the usual beauty of Primal. In its animation to just kind of be gross. Comparing it to that episode, there's a part where a character is so strong that they are actually like punching the organs out of creatures, like breaking jaws off, and you see it in all detail. And although I think that's certainly gory, and I'm sure some people are grossed out by it, I was like astounded by how good the animation was and just how detailed and just like it's like, oh my gosh, it's so cool.
Not to mention, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but not to mention juxtaposition to that is the first half where they're at the oasis and the animation is just gorgeous and it's calm. There's a lot of time just spent focusing on the environment and looking at all the different shots, the fish underwater, things like that. Like that would have been one of my top choices without question, just because it has the best of both worlds. But yeah, continue.
I am comparing Primal to itself right now. I'm not comparing it to the other stuff we just talked about. But yeah, I still thought this was pretty great. The nightmare sequence was really amazing, and yeah. So, apparently this episode aired 6 months earlier than the rest of this half of the season. Really, it aired on April Fool's Day, which means it technically wouldn't count. What?
Yeah, that's what people are saying.
I believe that. I don't know why they picked this episode. I guess because of COVID. I don't know. Does COVID mean that you have to nominate like sick episodes?
Okay, so here's one of the, and maybe this has nothing to do with it, but one of the things that I really, really like about this episode, yes, it's gross, but consider this.
No, never. I've never thought before, and I won't start. No, yeah, what do you have to say?
It sounds like a little silly, but
Mhm.
zombie dinosaurs.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
the concept sounds silly on paper, but the way it's executed, where you have this typically, I believe it's called a brontosaurus.
Yes,
Typically,
a little foot.
yeah, it's a herbivore by nature. You wouldn't usually see it being as threatening other than its massive size, really. I mean, it can swing its body around, sure, but it's typically not viewed as an aggressive dinosaur that we know of compared to things like a T-Rex and things like that. The fact that this episode found a way to make that kind of dinosaur feel very, very threatening and disturbing, and the way that it introduces the concept, and that's one thing I like about Primal too, because there's another episode where it kind of goes the whole vampire route, which is another one of the episodes that I really, really like. Is it takes a bunch of like ideas and tropes that you're very familiar with, and it incorporates it into a dinosaur setting, which isn't something that you see very often. There aren't a lot of shows like Primal to begin with. Very, very few.
No. Hey, Shadow, name another adult animated cartoon that's not a comedy.
Well, yeah, exactly. Samurai Jack season 5.
Only one season of that show.
Yeah, true. Because the rest is more general audience. Anyway,
I'm not saying there's plenty of shows that are a comedy and something else.
Yeah,
but like
something like dead serious, and again, the setting. How many shows actually take place in like a prehistoric era? Yeah. And then how it's very, very unique and one of a kind. And the fact that it finds interesting way, like it's not just relying on that. It takes other inspirations and incorporates it into its setting and its theme. And the way that this episode takes the concept of like a zombie outbreak. I mean, sure, it's just one dinosaur, but that's really all the threat that the episode needs. It doesn't need to be,
I don't know, man. It vomited into the watering pool.
It did, and it slaughtered the rest of its herd. Like, it's brutal, for sure. But I think that
Did someone just name the Flintstones as an example of a non-comedy?
They better not have. Because last I checked, that show has a laugh track. Anyways. But the way, I think that the gross out is in service of like stressing the actual disturbance of the plague, and I think that the way that the dinosaur's behavior acts, like the way the dinosaur reacts and moves, especially like its body movement, the way it's kind of like wobbling around, and it's clearly suffering and in pain, but it stresses the urgency and the threatening status it has to Spear and Fang. That it's just
someone named it as an example of prehistoric. I gotcha.
Okay.
Sorry to call you out like that. I was just like, I was just in awe. I'm like, what?
Yeah, but it's just, yeah, it's solid. I think the nightmare sequence is great. I also love the final climactic sequence where they're running over like the lava field and there's the geysers and the ground breaking. The way that the whole scene uses a lot of like reds and oranges, the way that especially when the brontosaurus is like burning alive and you can see it like the flakes coming off of it and then falling through the sky, like that whole sequence is gorgeously animated. There's so much here that I really do like. I
agree.
I wouldn't be my number one choice, like I said. I'm fine with this one being picked. Like, I really think it is.
Do you not think this is the worst episode of Primal?
I don't.
I haven't seen the last, I think, like 4.
This would have been 7, so there'd be 3 after this one, so the last 3 then.
Yeah. But yeah, I do agree. I think that the gross out is in service of something. I don't think it's just let's be gross to be gross. I think they pushed it a little far. I would say, but I kind of feel like, and maybe this is just me extrapolating, but I feel like with a show like Primal, you get to interpret things. There is no dialogue, so you get to interpret it. And I would say my interpretation is that this is like the first creature that they haven't defeated. Like they just barely survived it. They couldn't even attempt to fight this thing. Like, I think the reason why they look so horrified at the end is just because this is a thing that exists in their world that can beat them. If they had gotten infected, that would have been it. That
Yeah.
was just like there's nothing they could have done. And I think that in a show where, you know, most of the conflict is they fight monsters, they fight various dinosaurs and, you know, fantasy stuff. Like, I think that that's interesting. I think that's very interesting, and maybe that's not the intention, but that's kind of what I got from it. Yeah, I think it is very interesting because it's been a while since I saw it, but if I recall, I believe like the first episode, or maybe even the first two, are pretty low on the fantasy in terms of like, you know, there's a man in dinosaur times, which is obviously not reality. But I think that I really like the fact that the show did ramp it up and went like, yeah, here's zombies, here's vampire bats, here's a giant spider. Like, I like the fact that the show, you know, here's a drug that makes you Hulk out. Like, I like that the show was not afraid to say, listen, we're not a realistic show. Like, we are a fantasy show. Let's incorporate more crazy fantastical elements instead of just a dinosaur and a human. Because when you watch the start of Primal, you kind of get the feeling like, okay, this is really cool. How can they make a whole series out of this? How is it not just going to be, oh, okay, here's a bigger dinosaur, and they fight a flying dinosaur? Like, how are they going to really extrapolate on this idea? And they clearly did. Honestly, most of the episodes are just let's fight a dinosaur, but
yeah, but there's a lot more, like, and one of the things you're pointing out is there's a lot more creature diversity besides just dinosaurs. I mean, there's a whole episode where they fight a bunch of snakes while they're getting pushed down like this giant river and eventually a waterfall, and the whole sequence takes place underwater. And then, you know, there's this whole other sequence where, you know, the threat isn't even like really this giant hulking monster. It's just a bunch of buzzards that are going to prey on Fang if Spear can't get her out of there in time, you know?
Spoilers for Primal, I guess.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
you better have seen it already. What are you doing if you haven't?
Seen the rest of it, but I will. Yeah, no, we're gonna take this excuse to talk about the show because it's probably, it might not get nominated again, and even if it does, I don't know that we're doing 2022.
Yeah.
So this might be the only time to really talk about it in depth, and yeah, no, I think that just by virtue of it being Primal, the animation, the no dialogue, just kind of the storytelling, I think it absolutely deserves to be nominated. I wouldn't have picked this episode. I think of what I saw, this is the worst. That doesn't mean that it's even bad necessarily, but I think that they maybe went a little too far with the flesh melting and the vomiting and the snot. Like, I don't know. It lingered on it for a little too long for my liking. And that's the other thing too. As far as stories, as far as the way it goes, there is an awful long time spent just on watching a dinosaur decay in a really disgusting way that I don't know. Not to my tastes. I'll just say that.
That's fair. I would at least make the argument that most diseases aren't instant, and I think that it lingers on purpose to show the progression of the disease. But yeah, either way,
what's
like
my favorite episode of Primal? I said it before. It's something of the man beast. Like that episode and that ending is just really, really good.
Yeah.
Also, apparently, Gendy is making a new show for Cartoon Network. Thank you for the super chat, Matthew.
Unicorns Alliance or something. I forget what it's called, but
Interesting.
I heard about it a couple times.
Yeah, you know what, Lord Kaiju, you have a point too. There is a part of me that is a little more squeamish about this sort of thing because of COVID. You know, like, I don't know. Is that why this was nominated?
It could be.
I think this was made before COVID.
I would say not that other episodes don't have like beautiful animation sequences, but I think the gross out, despite being gross, is still animated, and it's animated very, very, very well. And then again, that whole final sequence of them going through the lava field is huge, and the nightmare sequence as well. I think those three factors are what really pushed this as being an animated nominee. I think that's what it was going for. Yeah.
All right, I'm ready to move on.
Okay. All right. So Next up, we have South Park with the Pandemic Special.
Okay. So.
It's something.
Oh, how to sum this up? It's like asking me to recap a year. So I think it's important to note that this was the only episode of South Park released in 2020. Instead of doing a season, they just did this. So basically, oh gosh, COVID hits South Park. Randy is happy about this because his marijuana farm is doing great because everyone's staying at home and smoking, trying to escape, the harsh reality of life. And meanwhile, Stan is not coping well with the lockdowns and the masks and not having school and all various effects, things that are happening because of COVID. Cartman is absolutely loving it. He is in his element, not having to be around people, not having to really attend school. He loves it. And the police force becomes their teachers at school when the teachers don't refuse to teach under the circumstances. And because of that, a character gets shot, and the kids have to go into lockdown at the school. Oh, there's so much that happens in this. I feel like there's a subplot that I'm forgetting too. I don't know. But basically, the boys have to make it to Build-A-Bear so that Stan can have a happy time, even though he's blaming Butters. He's saying Butters is the one that's in trouble, when it's really him having poor mental health because of it. And then President Garrison comes in at the end. Oh, there is one thing I'm forgetting. The reason why COVID exists in South Park. But I don't know that I can talk about that.
Yeah.
Basically, scientists found a thing that might be able to cure COVID, and the president comes in and blowtorches it because he wants to get voted in again. It's a pangolin, not an armadillo.
Yeah, it's a pangolin.
Oh gosh. So yeah, sorry about just the run-on sentence that was, but. Yeah, that's kind of how this feels. It's an hour long, I should say that, or 44 minutes or whatever. But it crams a lot in, and really it does kind of, regardless of what you could say about the plot or whatever. I feel like this really kind of encapsulates the range of emotions and events occurring in 2020 pretty well. I think that if I wanted to show someone what it was like living in the pandemic, right? And I didn't want to show them a documentary or something. I wanted to show them something that encapsulated the feelings, right? Kind of the day-to-day minutia of it. I think this would be a decent thing to show them.
Dude, in 30 years, this special better be in history books. That's what I'll say.
The episode that aired after 9/11 is very culturally significant.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think this is, if you want a time capsule of 2020, this is it. This is it. Yeah. I think it had pretty much everything it needed.
I mean, there's even meta commentary. So Randy has a special on his pot, and this was a running joke from the previous season. But Randy keeps calling it the pandemic special, and other people are like, no one wants a pandemic special right now. And it basically kind of it's meta commentary on should we be making a South Park episode when people are so miserable right now? And I kind of like that they even addressed that. And I think, yes, I think South Park is needed in 2020, 100%. I was very iffy on the show, and honestly, the first time I watched this, I was kind of down on it or mixed on it, but I've since come back around on South Park, and I do think that this was, pardon the pun, but a breath of fresh air. And I do think that even it does feel at times like there's maybe a little bit too much going on, but I think for the most part it kind of weaves a lot of narratives and a lot of real life events in pretty well, and comes together in a pretty satisfying way.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I will say one thing that I've been wanting to say for a while. I don't know if I have, but doing this show has made me come around on South Park so much that because before we started doing this, I had hardly seen it, and it just didn't really appeal to me, and I only kind of knew like surface level stuff about it. But actually getting to watch things, not that this is the best written South Park thing that we've seen, because it's not, but just to see a lot of what the show is actually capable of has kind of made me become a casual fan of the series.
There you go.
So I am, with each passing week that we do the show, I've gotten more and more open to looking forward to seeing episodes. So yeah, no, I went into this with a very, kind of excited outlook to see what are they going to do with this, because this is a very recent thing. Everyone can really relate to it right now. This is kind of like the first time I'm watching a South Park episode, not immediately after it came out, but while what it's talking about is still relevant.
Yes.
So to have that experience finally is like, okay, yeah, I see the appeal, and like I said, I think that this captures 2020 perfectly in a nutshell. It has commentary on just about every major thing that was going on, from the election to the pandemic to other
Police
events.
brutality.
Yes, exactly. Yep. I think that the way it kind of highlights how poorly people were handling the pandemic in the show mimics very much how it was handled in the real world. I like that it highlights that. I think that the whole sequences with Randy and Mickey Mouse just absurd, absolutely ridiculous. I know you mentioned
they really
that this
they really cleverly wove it in the previous season, and I actually went back and watched that whole season, and I actually enjoyed it. But in that previous season, Randy had gone to China. Okay. This episode kind of adds to that. The flashback scene, most of it was not in the original. Actually, there's even one of him arriving that is different than in the original episode. In the original episode, there's a bunch of Disney characters like Iron Man and all that getting their luggage, but in the re-shown scene in the flashback in this episode, it's just a bunch of random people. I don't know why I noticed that, but I did. But they cleverly added on to that, and it's like, oh, that's so good. That Randy's the reason that COVID exists in this world is just, it's so funny. Like, it's the absurdity we needed, And I had completely forgotten about the ending where Garrison comes in and just blowtorches the cure, and he's like, ha, vote for me. Like, can't be curing that yet. It's just it's so crushing, but it's just kind of how reality is. Like, I think there's a lot of commentary on a lot of small things, like people wearing their masks incorrectly and how misinformation is spread around the town. There's also the absurdity of how Randy tries to cure COVID, and then the effects of that, how everyone has a mustache.
Yep.
Like, it's so uniquely South Park, and yeah, it really captures it. And I like the fact that they touch on the mental health angle as well, because that is important. It is a thing. It's still going on. It's really difficult, especially for kids coping with this. It's not easy. I like that they had a character who's a recurring character on the show actually had COVID and was like doing horribly. Like they try to show some of the reality of it that has been shielded from a lot of people. Not trying to get soapboxy, but just I don't think the media has shown enough the actual effects of being in the hospital with COVID. And this episode really shows like in what bad state Stan's uncle is in.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I also like how they use Cartman in this episode. It's kind of like he's in favor of lockdowns, but not because of the actual issues with the disease.
I think it would have been very easy to turn Cartman into kind of a figurehead for anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers, COVID deniers, all that stuff. And I think in other years they might have, but I liked this angle too, where he is still his selfish, take advantage of the situation kind of guy, but he is not. They didn't make him into the very thing that is just unfortunately all too rampant. And it's ironic because in the previous season they had an anti-vax episode where Cartman's mom wouldn't get him or couldn't get him vaccinated because Cartman hates shots. That but I don't know. I kind of like that they did that because we already have the president in this episode. So
yeah,
I like that they didn't.
Appreciated.
Yep, they didn't shy away from the police brutality. They didn't really go into like Black Lives Matter a lot. It is mostly centered around COVID. But like it's clever that they say that the teachers don't want to teach because of being afraid of getting COVID. That was a very real thing that happened and is still happening. Where schools are not preventing these. They're not doing as much as they should because the government says they can't mandate things. So making it so that cops are there, and then exactly what you think would happen in South Park happens. And it's just, even though I don't even necessarily agree with it, the fact that they are kind of like addressing the whole non-COVID related deaths, like it being marked as a COVID related, like I don't even agree with South Park on that, but they are covering it, and it's I don't know. I liked this. I didn't. It's like with some other South Park episodes where I don't know. You can't separate it from real events, and you shouldn't, because that's how it was made.
Yeah.
And I think that they very cleverly. I like that they made one episode that covers the year. They didn't rush out to make an episode on COVID before. If they had made an episode on COVID right when it was really hitting the U.S., it probably would have been full of just misinformation.
Yeah,
and
it wouldn't
stupidity.
have. I'm glad it had the foresight that it did.
Yes.
To kind of wait, give things time, and then come out with this instead. I think that was definitely.
I think they learned something from the 2020 election and basing their storyline around things that are hugely up in the air and unknown.
Yeah.
So, yep. And this was followed up with another similar thing where they did the vaccination special in 2021. So.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess all that being said, I don't know. I think that this just really hits something. It's hard to compare it to other things because I just, in superficial ways, the Bob's Burgers and the Primal episode are related to COVID, I guess. But this is the one that was specifically made with COVID in mind.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah, I thought this was good. I also like the fact that they didn't cheap out with the masks. They could have just not animated the characters' mouths at all, but they have so many scenes where the characters take their mask off to talk, just so that the characters' mouths can be moving, so we can see it. It's like this would have been an excuse to be lazy and just not have it, and they still do. Even when the characters are masked up, their chin still moves, which I thought was just a neat touch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
no, I agree. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'm ready to move on to the fifth and final nominee.
Well, what did you think? But what did you think about this overall in general?
Oh, well, like I said, I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it greatly. It does a good job at capturing the time period that it was made about, and I thought that while there was a lot going on, it was still absurd and funny, and definitely the levity that a lot of people probably needed, especially about such sensitive topics like this. It's not trying to make you think one way or another. More or less, it was made with the intent of being entertaining. And
right, and that's the interesting thing too, is that unlike a lot of other South Park, I don't really think this episode is necessarily like slamming anyone.
It's
or
not really
anything.
biased one way or another necessarily. I mean, it like you mentioned, it points out various things, but it's not like pushing it so hard the way other episodes like Freemium Isn't Free have done.
Right.
So, like I said, I think that this one was definitely made with the goal of being entertaining first, commentary second. It's still there, but it's not the number one priority. And I really did enjoy this special.
Okay, now we can move on.
Okay. All right. So last up, we've got the Dad Feelings Limited by The Simpsons. That's the last episode we're ending this off on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Perry.
Oh boy.
No. Okay, so in this Simpsons episode, comic book guy doesn't want to have kids, but his wife, Kamiko, wants kids, and she's trying to convince him by hanging out with the Simpsons kids. And comic book guy gets freaked out by all of this and runs off to his childhood home, where we learn his dramatic origin story. And then he comes around on it. Okay, so one of the things I have to say that I liked is at first I kind of thought this was going to be an episode about like berating someone who doesn't want kids into wanting kids, like
Hmm.
really, because I think that not having kids is that's your life choice. You
Yeah.
can do that. I don't think you're better or worse than anyone else for making that choice. I think that's just a legitimate life choice you can make, and I think that's absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of media that does kind of push the agenda of you need to have kids to feel whole, to have a thorough life or whatever. But I like the fact that the episode takes more of the angle of comic book guy is just kind of immature and just hasn't even really considered kids versus, he's not like a hard line. I 100% do not want kids, and I know I do not want kids. It's more tackled from the he hasn't considered it, and he's
Hmm.
because he's immature, which I thought is a good angle. I think is a respectable angle.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Um, but yeah, and another thing is this features a character who doesn't get a ton of spotlight episodes, so that kind of makes it a little different and interesting. I wouldn't say that this episode does a lot in terms of like justifying itself in the Emmys. It does have a slight animation shift when we
Yep.
hear his backstory, but it's not that different. And it's not really that interesting, I wouldn't say.
Yeah,
But
I
as far as
was.
the story, I'd just say, as far as the story goes, I thought this was cute. I thought this was good, but not really great, not really amazing. Like it was good. It was fine.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat where just a little curious if there really wasn't any other episodes more worthy of a nomination compared to this one, because it falls in line with what episode was it? We've seen so many Simpsons episodes at this point.
I don't know.
Anyway,
Describe it. I can tell you.
anyway, one of the episodes where it's like it's fine, it's serviceable, but it's not like standout. And I feel like
Right.
the only two aspects I can really find that would really make me think why this was considered for the nomination was the message about the whole idea of an adult struggling with whether or not they want to have kids, and B, that animation shift, which, as you said, isn't that different. And I agree. There have definitely been other Simpsons episodes that we have seen in the past that had much better and much like shocking or different or exciting animation shifts. This one, not so much. I wasn't like I was. It was cool that it was there, but I wasn't
Yeah.
impressed by it by any means. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, this is. I feel like there could have been something more exciting, more invigorating there than what we ended up getting.
I do kind of feel like maybe for Simpsons episodes, this might have been the best one that aired. I saw some of the episodes that aired this year. I can't say definitively, but
Well,
the fact that it's pretty good is better than a lot.
yeah.
On the Simpsons.
I mean, look, let's be real. Priscilla makes a great point. Where's Wally with a gun when you need him? Wally with a gun was not in this episode, so I can't give it the win.
Well, we got Back to the Future or whatever.
Or
you
whatever.
call it.
Forward to the Past, I think it was. Yeah.
Did you know that kids like cell phones and cell phone bad?
Yeah, I don't know. Toon J with a $5 super chat. This is one of the weaker episodes this season. I would have nominated The Road to Cincinnati or Manger Things instead.
Oh, I hated Manger Things. I turned it off halfway in.
Is it like a Stranger Things like?
No. A lot of the titles are parodies of things, but the episode has nothing to do with it. No.
Okay, never mind then.
There is
Anyway.
a Stranger Things parody, but that's not the episode Manger Things. Welcome
Oh.
to The Simpsons.
Okay. Yeah, anyway, I don't know. If this is really the best of the season, which according to Toon J it's not, then it must be a really weak season. Because, yeah, I don't know. I don't really. It's not the worst thing here, but it's one of these just
I
okay.
liked it.
It's
I don't
okay.
know.
It's okay.
Like-
it's just not award worthy.
The comic book guy's backstory was cute, but it wasn't anything like mind-blowing. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, he wasn't loved as a child. Wow.
Where?
I would not have guessed. Like, it'd be a real twist if he was a popular jock in school or something. Like, it's not really that much of a twist. Like, okay, so, yeah, his family, they were all exactly like him, but with other interests.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't loved. And then contrived reason for why he actually was secretly loved by his dad.
Yeah.
Dumb. Oh, I bought you a baseball, but I didn't give it to you. Ooh. Like, oh, so there was no other moment in his childhood that you could have been there for him? Like, as if you giving him that baseball would have made it all better. And I guess it just does. I don't know. It is a little hacky in that thing, in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing too, is that the backstory is not. I don't think it's great.
I
it's
don't
okay.
either.
Like it does what it needs to do, but it's just like it's like they were afraid of Principal and the Paupering it up, where they didn't really want to fundamentally change anything about the character, but they still wanted to give him a backstory. It's like, why bother if it's going to be this generic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I didn't find myself laughing too much either. Like, I don't know. It wasn't really a comedy-driven episode either. It was just kind of like, it was one of those. I don't know.
I liked the absurdity of the. What was it, like a giant boat in Back to the Future Part 3? Fake Back to the Future. It's like an old-timey boat instead of a train.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Homer and Marge are in this episode too.
They are. They sneak off to some haunted thing at one point.
Yeah.
I trapped with jazz music, I guess. I think that was supposed to be a joke, but I didn't laugh at it.
Oh. I don't really like how the Simpsons are blamed for... Like, it's kind of dumb, because she likes hanging out with Maggie, and that's, like, what kicks off this whole thing. And then she uses the other Simpsons kids to try to convince Comic Book Guy to have kids. And then she gets all grumpy when kids are kids, and her husband runs away.
And she gets
like,
mad at the parents for it.
Lady, that's your problem. I know the show is called The Simpsons, so they have to solve everything. But like, if that's how you feel about kids, if you're ready to, like, I don't know, yell at them. I mean, and I don't know. It felt. I didn't really get the feeling that these two would make good parents.
Yeah, I didn't either. I didn't either.
The more I talk about this episode, the less I like it. And that happens with Simpsons episodes.
Yeah. So, all in all, it's an okay episode. I wasn't impressed in any one particular area. And I don't think it's award worthy.
Okay. All right. So that's the nominees.
Yeah. So with that, I guess we can go ahead and let's see. We talk about gosh, what do we do next? Do we rank them?
We rank them.
We rank them. Okay. Do you want to go first or should I?
You can.
Okay. All right. So my ranking for 2021 is actually very, very easy. Pretty much all of them just fell in line perfectly. And I can't really refute anything. So, in the bottom spot, number 5, Bob's Burgers, Worms of In-rear-ment. No competition for that slot. Absolutely the worst nominee on this list, without question. There's hardly anything good that I have to say about it. One of the worst Bob's Burgers episodes I've had to ever sit through.
Wow.
Coming in at number 4 is Big Mouth. Like I mentioned, I appreciate the way it handles the trans character and that whole subplot with her. But that's the only good thing I have to really say about it. I feel that a lot of it was all over the place and not in a necessarily fun and entertaining way, the way that the South Park special was. I think that a lot of the jokes are very crude and not charming, not appealing. I don't really have any interest or investment in any of the other characters' plot lines. It just felt like a whole lot of nothing. And as we mentioned, the one plot line is literally the tropey, oh, my best friend is friends with my other friend now, and I'm being left out, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't go anywhere. It didn't do anything with that. Number 3, I'm putting the Simpsons episode. It is that middle of the road. It's okay. It doesn't really do any one special thing, but it's not the worst thing ever. Number 2, I'm putting South Park. I think South Park is a fun, entertaining ride from beginning to end. Lots of great, relatable moments. Practically anyone who watches it can identify with most of it. Maybe not every single thing, but a lot of it. It's very, very wide, got a very widespread appeal, for sure. And then at number 1, Primal. I mean, come on. There's no question. It is gorgeous. It is beautifully animated. So much of the episode has immense thought and like creative vision put into it. And one thing that I can say about every single episode of Primal is every shot has a purpose. Like that. It's not Bob's Burgers standard. Let's just have a character look directly into the camera and be as boring as we can possibly be. It is the polar opposite. Every single shot has some kind of emotional or progressive purpose that sends a message. Like you could look at any single screen cap from the show and you can get some kind of emotion out of it. You can't say that for most of these other nominees. Like it's on a level by itself. It's incredible. I could sing Gendy Tarkovsky, as we call him now. I could sing his praises to the ends of the earth. It's just incredible. No
Gendy
question.
Tartarsovsky.
Gendy Tartarskovsky. Yeah. I don't know why this became a thing, but it is. But yeah, so that's my ranking.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. All right, so yeah, what did you put at the bottom?
Bob's Burgers.
Yep, I'm doing it too.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see if I was special or not. Yeah. Well, so Big Mouth is second to last, and I got absolutely nothing out of Bob's Burgers other than disgusted. Really, Big Mouth. You know what? It at least made me slightly interested in the show, even if it also grossed me out. At least I felt like the anxiety mosquito was interesting and pretty well handled. And of course, the way they introduced the trans character and you know, common issues that trans kids would face, I thought was handled pretty well. Overall, still a mess, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we have the same opinion on that.
Yep.
So yeah. And then at number 3, I'm gonna put The Simpsons. Yeah, it's a Simpsons episode. It tells a fairly competent story about a side character that people like, and yeah, I don't know, like it's there. So, at number 2 is
All right.
Primal.
Yeah, you're wrong. I'm just kidding.
Listen.
Just kidding.
Listen,
I'm just kidding.
I'm explaining myself to the audience.
You're entitled to your opinion.
Can I talk?
No. Go ahead.
Look, Primal as a show, I think 100% is award worthy. But the way I look at these nominees, I don't go by which show do I like the most or which show do I think is the best. I wish Primal had submitted any other episode, but personally, I'm a little grossed out by it. I still agree that there's a lot of beauty in it, but I think to really explain it, I do need to say South Park is number 1. And look, the pandemic's been really hard, and a lot of pandemic related like episodes or you know whatever, like I don't know that there even has been a ton of them, but I'm sure there will be. It just hasn't really clicked. But this episode, even if I don't think it was the best episode of South Park, I do kind of feel like it captured something really, really, really important and something that I've felt. And I don't know. I'm not even looking at chat. I don't want to know what chat has to say about it. I'm not looking. But I stand by my opinion. I agree. And I do want to say that it's stupid that I have to compare them, because I do think on animation standpoint alone, of course Primal wins it. Of course it beats out anything else on the animation alone. But I think South Park had I don't know. I think it just wove together what 2020 is into a package, and that's, in this very moment, that is what I feel is more award worthy than Primal, which was beautifully animated. Yeah, so take that.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
It won. Spoilers. It won the Emmy.
It did.
Yeah. Which I'm happy for. I'm not upset by that at all. The South Park pick is a personal pick to me. I completely admit that. But again, it's like, how do you compare something that accurately captures real world things versus a fantasy? Like it's asinine that we have to compare them.
It is. It absolutely is. We've said it time and time again, but there's no way that these could even be like.
I could very easily sit here and argue Primal is better because the animation, because the artistry, because it's unlike any other adult animated show. I could, and I like on another day maybe I would. It's kind of a toss up for me, honestly, but I just kind of feel right now that South Park's hit something for me. And maybe if the rest of Primal wasn't so dang good, like it just makes Plague of Madness look a little worse in my opinion. But anyway, yes, Primal won, and I'm very happy at that. I think Primal the show certainly deserves awards, and I'm very happy that for once artistry and uniqueness actually paid off with the Emmys.
After like 2010, yeah.
Right, not since Over the Garden Wall really.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the Vat of Acid episode, we also agreed with, but
yeah.
it happens so rarely, so I'm very happy with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it was definitely relieving to hear. It's unfortunate that we both kind of got spoiled ahead of time, but I definitely breathed a sigh of relief when I was like, okay, there's still hope. Mm-hmm. But I still don't take award shows very seriously, outside of doing this show. Like, it really doesn't mean anything. I mean, as Pi discovered, Big Mouth is currently listed as an Emmy award-winning series.
Yes, because it won an award for some voice acting thing.
Yep. So now the whole series is Emmy award-winning because of that one thing. So, yeah. Not something to be taken seriously, really. Yep. But if anything's going to win it, it may as well be the one that's most deserving. Or second most deserving in the case of South Park. But yeah, so make sure you guys vote if you haven't already. There's a couple more minutes left. Before we do that, we have...
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there is.
We have some of our own nominees that we'd like to suggest. Do you want to go first, or should I?
Yes, sure. So, I'm going to go Season 1, Episode 1 of Kid Cosmic.
Whew, okay.
Yeah. So...
Yeah, good choice.
I'm just picking Episode 1, honestly, just because, I want Emmy voters to have, in this hypothetical situation it got nominated, the first episode. I think Kid Cosmic is not, like, heavily serialized in that if you were to see a random episode, you'd still probably know what most is going on. But I think this is, it's a good entry point. So, yeah, Kid Cosmic is a fantastic show by the other guy that isn't Gendy. He made some other show. What's that show
Foster's
called?
Wandering over the Powerpuff.
Craig McCracken made it. It's really good. The art style is really cool. It kind of feels like a more refined version of Foster's and Wander Over Yonder.
Yep.
The story's cool. The style. There's a lot of style in it. It's a very stylistic show. I would have thrown that up there.
Excellent choice. I had a feeling you were going to pick that, so I picked something else. I'm glad I did. So I'll throw it out there. Any episode of Final Space Season 3. But because that show is definitely award worthy, and it falls into the adult category. But anyway, I already picked that for a different year, so I'm picking a different show.
Children's shows are banned. Guess what, Toon J? I don't care.
Yeah,
this is hypothetical.
And I don't care either. And honestly, I'd even make the argument that mine shouldn't even fall into the children's show category with what happens in it. But I don't remember what I picked in the first 2 years that we did. I don't remember if I picked this show a different season. But I'm going with...
Oh, you definitely did.
No, not Final Space. Oh. Infinity Train Book 3.
Oh,
is my pick.
Crap. Mm-hmm. Yes, that was this year?
That was August of 2020, so it would fall into the,
right.
the timeline. Yes, so Infinity Train Book 3, without question. I haven't seen Book 4, so I don't know how that one stacks up yet.
Oh my god, dude, what about Kipo, too?
Well,
there were so many good things.
I feel like I might have picked Kipo. Like, I feel like I did pick Kipo.
What about Invincible?
Yeah.
Oh, man, Invincible was really good.
Oh my gosh, that one got snubbed because so many people wanted that one to be nominated.
Yes.
But no, I'm going with Infinity Train Book 3 as my choice. I think that just with how, like, the incredible storytelling with those characters and the way you kind of get this dichotomy where, you know, they start out as best friends and they kind of divert their own paths based on their own philosophies of how they interpret their environment on the train and the way events transpire. The whole sequence with like Tuba, oh my gosh, dude. Like,
yeah.
I would argue that book 3 is not a kids necessarily like kid focused series. Like I would say that falls in line with being eligible.
I would also argue that widely the internet didn't understand.
Yeah.
Infinity Train book 3, in how they portray one character as. Never mind. There's not enough time to get into it. Just people don't. It bothers me when they paint the one character as just evil and beyond
the bad guy.
Beyond anything, and then they paint the other character as like a great, amazing person, even though according to their backstory, they've both done really things.
Horrible things.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, and
I think that the show is trying to say it's definitely the one character is the villain by the end of it, certainly, and the other character certainly is on a path to redemption.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the point of season 3 was trying to avoid making things black and white. Right, and was trying to say that for want of a nail, either of these characters could have gone down that dark path. Right. But I think that the internet loves to just like blanket statement like, oh, this character did this, therefore they are forever unforgivable and will never ever whatever, when in reality the other character did very similar things too, and their journey is redemption.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you
Sorry.
took the word. No, dude. By all means, it speaks to how good it is. Like,
that's a part of why it's so good, is that it does try to tackle that nuance in a way that unfortunately went over a lot of people's heads.
And if Over the Garden Wall can be nominated in full, then so can this. So that's my justification. That's my pick.
You know what? I nominate Over the Garden Wall for 2021.
Yeah,
since the rules don't matter.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, no. I think Kid Cosmic's a great choice. Kipo, Final Space would have been a great choice. Invincible, and Infinity Train Book 3, like those 5, and then maybe knock one out for Primal or something. But like, would have been so much better than the South Park. Okay, South Park deserves it. The other 3 don't. Knock them out. Get some other stuff in there that actually deserves it. And this could have been one of the best years of the Emmys ever. But no. So here we are. That's my pick.
Okay, very good. All right, let's see what the fans said.
I wonder.
Well, I mean, I think I know what's going to be number 1, but I'm kind of curious about the rest of it. Refresh the page. Out of 324 votes, with only 3%, we have Big Mouth, The New Me.
Good job,
Which, fair
guys.
enough. If I hadn't seen it, I probably would have just automatically put it at the bottom if I hadn't seen that in Bob's Burgers.
Yep.
But next up with 5% is The Dad Feelings Limited. And then at 7% is Bob's Burgers.
Good.
Somehow that beat out The Simpsons. I don't know.
I don't know either, but good.
At 33% of the votes, not bad, The Pandemic Special, South Park. And with 52%, Primal, Plague of Madness.
Yep. No surprise there. Definitely, definitely worthy of the win. So, can't complain. But yeah, that's 2021 for you.
Yeah. Rowan ever brings up a real good point in that, the fact that we listed off so many great kid shows, or things that are classified as kid shows or whatever, and then being eliminated, it just takes out of the running so many really, really interesting things.
And even then, Invincible, Final Space, and Infinity Train Book 3 could all qualify as adult. But
Infinity Train Book 3 wouldn't,
according to them, yes.
According
to anyone who's actually watched it, you can make that argument.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah.
As our initial pitch for what we were going to call this show was, the Emmys are rigged.
Well, I don't know that sounds like libel. I wouldn't say that specifically.
Yeah, no, I know. Hyperbole, my friends.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so that's 2021.
But we do this in 2022? Probably not.
Because if this past year was anything to go by, and them kind of blocking out a lot of possible contenders for no real legitimate reason, on top of the fact that we've had to talk about Bob's Burgers for like almost 10 award shows in a row, well, chronologically speaking, unless next year they come out with some really good nominees, I don't have any interest, because it's just going to be more of the same, and one different nominee.
Right.
As long as Rick Dependent Spray doesn't get picked as a nominee,
oh my gosh.
I'll be okay with Rick and Morty's nominee.
All right.
Just don't let that one be the one that gets nominated, please.
Yeah. We that doesn't mean we won't be doing the award show audit by the time the next one rolls around. We very well might be, but we might be on to other things. We might not care about about this particular category anymore.
Never say never, but it's unlikely.
Yep. All right, Mr. Streak, what do we got next week? We're going back in time, back to the past with Samurai Jack. No, not Samurai Jack. With other shows.
Yeah, actually, Samurai Jack is one of the nominees.
What? We're going back to the past with Samurai Jack.
Boy. Jack. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So we've got 5 nominees for two.
No, hang on, Toon J. You can't just drop that and expect me to not cry. Imagine Bob's Burgers, Central Park, and The Great North all get nominated in 2022.
Stop.
I can't say anything about Central Park because I don't know. Do the characters all stare at the screen with their vacant eyes?
Probably. Wouldn't surprise me. Anyway,
no one's seen it. It's on Apple TV. Continue.
We've got the so this is for the Primetime Emmy Awards half hour 2004 animated category. First up, we've got South Park with It's Christmas in Canada.
Hey, Christmas in Canada, buddy.
Yeah. We've got Futurama with The Sting. Third up is Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack, The Birth of Evil. I have that's the screen cap. That's what it was for.
Is that a coup giving birth to evil?
No, that's a coup being birthed from evil.
Oh.
Anyway.
Okay.
We've got The Simpsons with The Way We Weren't.
Oh. A sequel to an episode Shadow has not seen.
Nope. And last but not least, we have SpongeBob with
did you finish your sentence, Shadow?
No, I said it. Okay. So yeah, those are the 5 nominees for 2004's half-hour category, specifically. Hope you guys are looking forward to it. If you're interested in watching the nominees before our show, make sure you do so. You got a week.
There's some spicy picks there. Yep. Ooh, man.
But I'm glad that there's more show diversity a little bit. So, yeah. I'm excited to go back to a time when the Emmys were a little more interesting.
Going back?
Gotta get back. Back to the past.
Next
Samurai
week.
Jack.
Next week we have a SpongeBob episode in prehistory, a Futurama episode set in the future, a Samurai Jack episode where he's gotta get back.
And I'm judging by what I kind of saw from the Simpsons episode that also takes place in the past.
It does.
And South Park takes place in Canada, so I mean it all makes sense.
That references a movie from the past.
Yeah, dude. Why are 3 of these episodes? Well, 4 of them, I guess. Why are? Okay, that's gonna be really interesting. Now that you point that out. Okay.
Time is an illusion, Shadow.
Very, very interesting year we've got coming up. So make sure you guys go ahead and watch those if you want, and tune in next week when we talk about them.
Wait, hang on. How is it obvious who wins? There's a lot of real interesting episodes there. I would not say it's obvious.
Yeah, I mean, one is definitely more favorable, but it's not obvious. I mean,
depending on who you're talking to, I don't know. Yeah. I think it's an absolute toss-up. Well, I don't know. We'll get to it. There's some interesting stuff.
And make sure you guys tune in because we're gonna have very special guest Gendy Tarkovsky back on the show.
Don't say that because we actually are gonna have a guest next week.
I know,
you'll just have to find out if it's a real guest or a fake guest.
It's Gendy Tarkovsky.
Gendy Tartarsovsky.
Yeah. No disrespect to Gendy. We actually are both really huge fans, and we love his work. He's fantastic. It's just it's a running joke. We don't mean any offense. Gendy, if you are out there and you are listening to us right now for some reason, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But come on the show.
If next week, if the poll doesn't mention SpongeBob by name, you guys know what it is. It's just to make sure it doesn't get skewed by the chumps out there that don't watch the award show. Audit.
Yeah. Also, don't vote for it anyways.
What? I mean, well, y'all know how I feel about it. All right. Bye. PIEGUYRULZ out.
See you guys. See you next week.